This month is about full site editing, and I asked some questions on the meetup. What is your understanding of WordPress full site editing? Are you ready for it? And what are your hopes and or concerns? And I had a number of answers, hoping to learn as much as possible. I've got a basic understanding. I've talked about it with others. I want to understand it better. I want to replace Elementor. I'm looking forward to it. And quite a long one. I think that was from Thaya. We have to also thank our global community sponsors, who are Bluehost, GoDaddy Pro, Green Geeks, Jetpack and WooCommerce, because they sponsor primarily the meetup. No, WordCamps. Is that right? Abba's disappeared.
Yes, no, I'm here. They also sponsor the foundation, so yes. So we're thankful for all they do to the community.
Right, we're getting into it now. So today we're going to talk about full site editing, and it's going to be done by using an example website which is called sneakpeek.me. There's a hyphen between sneak and peek, and this is a website that's live and it's running a full site editing theme, and I'll be going in there, and whenever you want to see something which is actually using the editor, let me know. What I'm going to talk about apparently is how to get started with full site editing, the components of the editor, show you some example templates and template parts, and some of the blocks which full site editing themes are created with. We'll show you a few of the example themes and maybe even a few of the code samples from these example themes. And then maybe we'll answer some questions to some frequently asked questions, which most of them were my frequently asked questions. And then how to become involved with full site editing, what's missing in the solution so far, future plans for it, and there'll be links to other resources, which if I don't mention them now, you will find them on the website. So the first question I asked is, what is full site editing?
Imagine being able to build a complete website either from scratch or from a quality approved theme using just one tool. Create a professional looking site displayed the way you need it, with your own designs for header, footer, menus and widgets, and dynamic content. No expensive developer, no upfront costs, and no yearly license fees. Modify the theme you love without any programming, using build components anybody can use. Hand build your site using blocks, or copy and adapt curated design patterns. There are hundreds to choose from. Create and structure your own templates and template parts to display your content the way you want it, so that what you see is what your visitors get. Lovingly developed by hundreds, tested by thousands, used by millions, and reaching a global audience of billions. This is not just editing, this is full site editing.
Now, do I need to carry on, or is that enough?
We're intrigued to hear more.
All right, fair enough then. So this is on the website, and this is the home page of the website, and there's what we just heard me say, and now we're going to an introduction. So hello, I'm Herb. This is my third full site editing theme, and it's called ThisIs. And what I'm trying to demonstrate a guide to full site editing, or an introduction to full site editing blocks and themes. So I'll just take you through this thing. This bit here is just a header, and there's a search box, and there's a menu, and there's a button that doesn't do anything. Then we have a page title or something title. which is the title of the post. And then there's the post content, and over on the right hand side, a sidebar of sorts with some navigational areas, and then a structured list of all the different pages that we could possibly try to cover in the hour that we've got. Here, down here is a post author block, and scrolling right down we have some what they call tag clouds. These are the tag cloud of the categories, and these are the tag cloud of the different posts. And then we have the footer, social media links, a couple of images, and this is the version of WordPress it's running, and this is the version of Gutenberg it's running, and this stuff you're not supposed to see, but I haven't managed to get rid of it yet. All of this is created using blocks. And if I was to click on this to edit site, you would then be able to see the whole of the website created using blocks. But before I do that, I'm going to move on to a couple of quotes. Full site editing is, oh look, there you go. Abba's quote from March: "The full site editor will further improve the editing experience for WordPress users. Come and be a part of making it a great one." And a couple of quotes from a theme author called Carolina Nymark, who basically wrote the 2021 theme, and another one from the Automatics, what's her official term? Customer Relations Wrangler.
Developer Wrangler. She's brilliant.
She's a developer, and she's responsible for running what's known as the FSE Outreach Experiment. Now, these are randomly selected quotes, so if I was to click on that button there, we should get another set. So we got one from Ducky Fuzz, who says, "FSE is WordPress's coming of age." And he says that because in a week's time, WordPress will be 18 years old. Isn't he a wise bear? If I was to click on that, I get more quotes. If I click on this, I will get all the quotes. Frequently asked questions. What is the FSE Outreach Experiment? And the FSE Outreach Experiment is the thing run by Anne McCarthy, which gets people who are interested in full site editing to come along and run some tests. There's scripts of the different tests to perform. The most recent one that's been called for, I haven't yet done, which is template editing and navigation block. And people are asked to perform the scripts and then reply, did it all work? Did anything go wrong? Were you able to do it with just a keyboard? Were you able to do it using a screen reader? And all that sort of stuff to test how well full site editing is actually working and how easy it is to use, accessible. So let's have another FAQ. So I responded to the query quest using a keyboard only. I did 2 videos and I was actually not all that successful in doing it. And that's probably because I've been using a mouse for 35 of my 45 years of using a keyboard. So I've forgotten some of the different things you needed to do to move around. So here's the sitemap again. This is what I'm going to use to go through and pick the different things we need to do. This bit on the right hand side here is a page list, and this is a block which is provided by WordPress. I've got below it a page tree, which is from a shortcode that I've written. You'll notice they're slightly different. This is because this isn't quite right yet and it's not sorting it in the order I needed. But it's good enough for now. So whereas I have home at the top here, it's not at the top there. So what we're going to do is we're going to just go straight into the getting started bit. And this is how you get started with using full site editing. First of all, you install and activate the Gutenberg plugin. Then you install a theme. Then you view the site and then you click on Edit Site, and that will start you using the site editor. It's not too hard, is it? How do you install the Gutenberg plugin? You have a choice of which one you want to get. You can get the latest version of Gutenberg from WordPress.org by clicking on the download link from WordPress.org. Or if you want a nightly build, you can get one produced by somebody called Birgit Pauli Thuck, whatever his name is. And that will give you the latest version, which has been pre-built. Or if you're a developer and you need to have access to source for doing some things, then you can get the development version directly from GitHub, which is where it's developed. So the easiest thing to do is to download it from WordPress.org. Then you want to go and get a theme. This theme is possible. You can get this one. This is theme, or you could use the 2021 blocks theme, which is one of the themes that are currently available. So having downloaded and installed your theme and clicked on Edit Site, you then get taken into the Site Editor beta, which is basically a block editor on steroids, I suppose. It's got extra bits that you didn't have before. On the left-hand side, there's a template navigation, which is where you can choose the part of the theme you're going to be working on as you're constructing different templates that make up the way your theme displays stuff. In the middle is the main block editor, where you put in your content and structure your page, and on the right hand side is global styles. So I'm actually going to go in there right now rather than go through these pages. So here we go, click on Edit Site, and I should go straight in to the theme. So now my front page, which you've seen before, consists of some little special debug stuff I put in, the header. There is a cover block with some text. Below it is a featured image. That's not supposed to be there, it's supposed to be a video. And then there's the words I wrote and a few buttons and the menu. So normally you would just have, when you're editing in the normal block editor, you would have the content. But here we can actually see we have the whole of the header to edit. Now, if I click on this thing here called the list view, which is an expanded version of the list view in the block editor, we can see that this bit here that I've selected now is the header. It consists of this custom HTML block and then a group consisting of the columns, including a site logo block, which is where I've specified this image. Further down we have a navigation menu, which is, navigation is the new word for menu effectively. And next to that we have the buttons. This button doesn't actually do anything. And we can see it doesn't do anything because there is no link behind it. Now if I was to fill in that link later, that would actually download a theme for you, and off you go and start full site editing. On the right hand side you can see I have the global styles open, and this is where the choice of font we're using is selected. If I change the font family there, you can see it's changing every single font that's being used on the website. So we've chosen this set. I could also increase the size of the font globally. Now if I don't want to change it globally and I want to reset it to what it was, it's probably normal, wasn't it, or default, then I can go and change things by block. So I could go into a button and I could change the font family of the button. So I can make my button change. Can't actually see it happening there, but I could change the font size. and I could change the color of the text and the background color like so. I don't actually want to change that, so I could probably do an undo and get back to how it was. The block editor is as before with a block inserter, and it's here we can see we can now start inserting things which are, and it's not working, is it? Probably because I've got something, the wrong thing selected. We can now select things which are normal blocks like a heading or cover, or we can have this thing called a template part. And a template part is a set of components, blocks put together, which you can incorporate into templates in order to build your website up. So I could choose one of these headings, or I could choose, these are patterns, or I could choose an existing template part that I've already created. So now when it produces this list, we can see a list of the different template parts with the name of the template part below, and it's actually giving us a preview of the template part we want to include, and it's also previewing it, incorporating the current content of the page. So we're editing the front page, and therefore the body only part of the template part is showing the body part of that page. Right, I'll get rid of that bit, the block inserter, and then we go and look at this thing over the left hand side, which is the template navigation. Now this is going to go wrong in a bit, but never mind. So here we can see we're editing the front page. I could choose to edit the 404 template, which is what you get when your website has not been able to find something. So here I've simply got a message not found, and there are a couple of links to it. If I wanted to add another link, I just click on plus, start typing in another button, and save it, and lo and behold, the system now says, so you've been changing the front page, you've been changing the 404 page, and you've been changing your custom styles. Do you want to save those things? And I'll say, yeah, why not? And off it goes and saves it. So if we were to now visit the 404 page, we should actually see that button appearing. There you go. I've edited a template, not actually the content of the website. Go back into Edit Site. And I'm back into editing the front page. I can choose another way of getting to that template navigation list, and we can see the other ones that we can change. Now it's also possible to edit, and this is where things aren't going to work because you won't be able to see it. This is a minor bug in Gutenberg 10.6. We can edit templates directly and then choose those, or we can edit template parts directly and choose from those. I could do a search that might help. So we can choose to edit the post footer stuff, and all that contains is this little piece of text that says copyright such and such, and we can see it's a paragraph block, and it has a tiny little font. Let's make it a much larger font. There you go. So I've now changed a part of my website. If I go and visit that website, you can see the enormous text at the bottom. Right, back into Edit Site, we'll be back to the front page editor. And if I choose content, and we can't see that, that probably says pages. And if I did a search for something and I search for template hierarchy and picked it, I've actually got, what did I end up getting? Post page number 382. And this page is the bit about the template editor. And I'm editing a full width template. Now, as you can see, I've got confused as to where I am. One reason is because I couldn't actually see what I clicked on. And the other one is because you are in the middle of editing both a template and also the content for that template. So it doesn't help that my screen capture, the featured image here, is getting in the way. Why don't we just delete that featured image, and maybe a lot easier to see. Is anyone as lost as I am? I hope not. So template navigation is a new bit on the left hand side, enables you to choose the templates that you're working on, or the colors come back, or the pages or the posts. And if it's not listed in the 10 in the list, you can do a search for them. So you can actually edit your content in as if it were part of the page. You have the normal block editor for editing your content, and you have another thing which is called the template editor, where when you're editing content, you can actually choose how that edited content should be displayed on a template. This is something that you could do before. You could choose a particular template to display some content, but now with the full site editing, you can pick any template you like, really. So I am going to choose to set the template to display this as page 2. Well, first of all, update that and view it. And as you can see, it looks very strange indeed, and there is a reason for doing that. Now I'm going back to edit the post. And now I'm going to say, I don't want to edit the content, I want to edit the template for this content, and this is using the template editor. And here we can see that it's a simpler version of the front page. Instead of a header, I've just got a simple site title block, and then we have the tagline for the website, and then in here we have the post title, and finally we get to the post content, and that is the simple template called page 2. I click on the back button and I go back, and I'm back into editing my content. And if I reset that to the default template and update it, we can see the website is displaying the content back on the template that has been chosen for it. Now this little bit up here which disappears when I hover over it is some debugging stuff I've put into my templates, so I can tell which template I'm actually viewing. And this thing here which appears when I hover over it is another bit of debugging stuff, so that a particular template part can say which one it is. Now the reason you do that is because the template itself, the theme itself, provides templates and template parts as HTML files. So you get given a Blue Peter version of your website, but then you can modify the Blue Peter version just by editing these things, and they then get saved as content in the website database. If I'd have chosen to access the site editor from the admin menu on the left hand side, I would have been using this. Below it we can see the appearance menu contains a list of templates and template parts. Now, since we've started, I've made changes to the front page, and therefore it has actually now stored this information inside the database. But if I just click on edit, we go straight back in, and now we're in the editor of the template parts. I'm not editing a template, I'm editing content which is a template. Let's move on. So I should have covered the navigation bit. It's a bit about editing global styles using the template editor. I didn't cover keyboard shortcuts. So now let's go on to templates and template parts. We saw this bit down here. We've done a demo. Let's go and have a look at some examples from some other themes. So this is actually the theme we're working with, and I've written it, and it's got 15 templates, and this is what a template looks like. So here is the 404 template. It consists of Gutenberg blocks. So the first one is a straightforward custom HTML block which contains the debug stuff that we saw, and the second block is a template part, and this template part, this bit says go and find the template part called header as part of this theme, and display it with a particular layout. And after that we have a group block. Now it's not all that fun to write all this HTML and HTML comments, which is why you use a thing like the site editor. But if you're a theme developer, this may be what you'll find. This is probably a bit easier to do sometimes than it is to create it in the editor and then export it into your theme. And you can see I've done this for 15 different templates, some of which are only there for testing and not for real work. And these templates make use of template parts. So we have, this is a replacement for that debug thing. I've written a block called debug block, and that would display, this is the 404 HTML template part being displayed. But belt and braces, I've got that there as well. Now that's one of the themes that we have. We could look at another theme, and 5 of these themes are also already available on WordPress.org. Here's TT1 blocks, and it has just 5 templates. The 404 page, the index page, which is the general purpose, sorry, I'm saying page when I meant template, general purpose thing that gets displayed if it can't find something more suitable, the home page, and a single template and a page template. The single template is used for displaying single posts, and the page template is used for displaying single pages. Index, therefore, is being used to display anything else, which could be an archive being a list of posts, or posts in a particular category, or posts in a particular tag, or posts selected by date, and so on. So if we go back to sneak peek and we look at all the posts in 2021, we are displaying an archive page, and here we have a special block type which is showing that it is the category of the type of content is the archive. If I was to change this to a particular tag like a code FAQ, then we can see that's already also coming up. So how do you know how you're supposed to construct these things? Well, WordPress in classic themes has always had, or for a few years now has had a rather complicated way of picking a template that you're supposed to be displaying. You start from the left-hand side, and basically you say, now what is this query that's been given to me by WordPress? What have I typed in? And I typed in 2021. So it says, oh, well, that's a date. Let's go and have a look. What do I need to display? Well, I would normally display a date template. And if I can't find one of those, I'd go onto the archive template. And if I can't find one of those, I'll display the index. Now I typed that in, and it wasn't a date template. Therefore, it went to the archive template. When I visited page 2, however, it went through and it said it was a static page, and I will use either a custom template or a default template. I didn't find a custom template, but it did find a template called page-2, and therefore it chose to use this one. As you can see, there's an awful lot of things that you can create in order to display the content to your users in a different format. And I've created 2 different category templates, one to display the category of the frequently asked questions, and another to display the category of the ThisIs things. So this is a different template category facts from the one for the frequently asked questions. Right, so now these templates are all made up of blocks, and there are some new blocks in Full Site Editing. There's 35, 36 or 37 in the latest version of Gutenberg out of the 177 total blocks and block variations that Gutenberg now delivers. Now you're not going to have to remember all of them, and I won't be able to remember all of them. And here you can see these are some of the things that were added. Now you've already seen a header and a footer, and we've seen the archive title, and I didn't call it the right name. What we haven't looked at is a query title or a term description or a login logout, or some of these other query pagination things or query loops themselves. So it would be a good idea to have a little look at a query loop and understand what this is. This is where we now have the capability of letting users start working with their dynamic content. And we'll do that by going to the blog, and we can see there's some dynamic content being displayed here. And we're going to go and edit the page, and it's just going to say, this is the blog page, what are you doing here? So what we're going to do is going to say, let's edit the template. And we can see we've got a number of different queries in. Now that's probably not the best way of doing it, so let's go out again, and this time going to edit site. Choose the archive. And we can see we're now editing something which has dynamic content being displayed. It's not actually the right one, sorry about that. And there are a few blocks that are not actually displaying anything, and there's some good reason for that. But basically it is showing us what our output might look like. So there's a featured image on the left hand side, a block title, a block content, which is actually the excerpt, and then some other blocks which include 2 that aren't there, and what are they called? Categories and tags. But the thing we need to see is, is this thing called a query block. And the query block is the thing that says how am I supposed to be displaying this content? And we've told it here that the content you're going to display is basically whatever the user typed in the query that you've asked for is going to be performed. And that doesn't show us very much because we're in the template, we're in the site editor. So I'm going to change that and say, no, I want to actually change this query and display something different. So I've now decided I want to display pages, and I'll display them A to Z. And I don't need to do any more filters, and I could say to display only 2 pages. Now that didn't work over there, sorry about that. So now we've got 2 pages listed, about and all posts, and these are the first 2 A to Z in the site. So I was able to insert or delete these blocks as I wish and update the way the site looks. So if I do that, save that, and go and visit the site and look at 2021 again, I basically destroyed my date query because it's no longer doing anything like what it was supposed to do. And if I went back in and changed that back to how it was, it should come up with the query with the results I thought about. So, moving on. A very bad example, I'm afraid, sorry, of the query block there. Let's have a look at some of the different themes. There are 5 themes available on WordPress.org, which are full site editing themes. TT1 blocks is the one that's being used by most people when they are performing experiments for the full site editing outreach program. These basically all do come from a Gutenberg GitHub repository called Theme Experiments, in which there are several more, including the bundled themes 2019 and 2020 block versions. And there are other themes being developed. The Automatic have a whole load of different themes, out of which 3 of them are FSE themes. There's one called Blank Canvas Blocks, which is pretty blank, and then there's one called Mayland Blocks, which is a child theme of that. So yes, you can have child themes in full site editing. Seedlet Blocks is a block version of a theme called Seedlet, and then I have written a theme called Fizzy, which you saw when we were looking at the templates and template parts on my other website. ThisIs, and there is another one called SB, which is Second Byte. So there's not many of them yet, but there will be some more. Plenty more, we hope. So what's going to happen? Well, WordPress 5.8 will contain some parts of full site editing, but not the site editor itself. So it will contain the blocks that you can use to make up the full site editing sites, or some of them, and it will contain the global styles logic, which is all processed from a file called theme.json, and it will also contain the template editor part of it. What will come later in WordPress 5.9 is more of the above, and some of the blocks which we thought are missing. For example, I thought that the ability to edit the post you're currently looking at should be a block, and as you can see, I don't have an edit button inside the content here because I'm on a page, but if I was in a post, then I probably would find one of those. There'll be lots of useful patterns will be made available using delivered in the pattern library, which is a bit like the block library, but for not just single blocks, but patterns of content. So you'll be able to choose a contact page or an about me page or just a different type of header or a different type of footer. And these will be developed by people all over the world and not necessarily for your theme, but you can import that thing and use it and save it as part of your theme. And there will be the ability to create all the different template types from within the site editor. At the moment, you're a bit limited of what you can do. And it'll also be possible to internationalize and localize your theme so that it can be used for people in other countries. This is not yet available. So let's assume that you actually did want to develop a theme. What would you need to do? So let's create a starter theme. In order to create a starter theme, you have to have a style.css file. All themes at the moment have to have a style.css file, and this is that bit better. This is the style.css file I've built for the ThisIs theme, and it basically contains hardly any CSS apart from bits where I had to change what the default processing was because it wasn't quite doing it using the global styles. So I had to set a margin to 0 and I had to set the current menu item color, and I had to put in my debug stuff. You also need to have an index.php file, not because it's ever going to get used except when Gutenberg isn't active, which can happen, and therefore this thing simply says turn it on. A full site editing theme is a full site editing theme simply because it contains a file called index.html in a folder called block templates. You can actually start off with a completely empty index.html file. Your website will be quite useless whilst it's like that, but at least you'll be able to click on the edit site menu and off you go and start creating your content. This website will also be fairly useless if you don't have a functions.php file in order to set some of the things that your theme might need to be able to do. For example, to be able to have featured images, post thumbnails, or for it to be able to display responsive videos. And because you might need to enqueue your CSS file, then you need to have some code to do that. This file here also contains some other stuff to fiddle in logic, which isn't available at the moment in full site editing, but that I needed to do, and therefore I had some special override logic. So with 1, 2, 3, 4 files, or was it 5 files? The theme.json file, which could possibly start off just like that with nothing in it, you are able to create a full site editing theme and off you go. Now, I'm not going to go into the detail of what I've been doing in terms of replacing existing functionality with functionality which works a bit differently. And I'm not going to go into the detail of how I provide this information up here. And I'm not going to tell you much about all the different quality attributes of full site editing, but anyone who knows his works on WordPress knows that we have to think about all of these different things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to you and say, do you have any questions?
I was wondering if it's safe now to start to develop sites for clients with FSC or not. For example, I have a client and the launch of the site will be after 5.8, but still I have concerns about it.
Well, I don't know the answer to that one, and I don't suppose anyone does until 5.8 comes out, and then we know exactly how far you're going to be able to get with it. I don't think, well, the site editor won't be available in 5.8. Therefore, they'll be restricted in what they can do. Do you want your clients to be able to use the site editor, or are you just going to create the theme for them?
I think I will be fully responsible for this site in the
Right.
short run at least.
Well, then it's a risk that you might want to take.
It's a
During
complicated one.
during the development of this theme, which I started at the end of April, beginning of this month, I was working with Gutenberg version 10.4, and now it's on 10.6, and on every single new version of Gutenberg, I've had to make changes to accommodate changes to Gutenberg. So we saw examples where a block that I was using is no longer available because it's been renamed. Now, if you stick with the blocks that are delivered as part of 5.8, then you should be all right, and you might be able to get away without using Gutenberg. But if you're trying to work on the bleeding edge, then every time Gutenberg updates, you have to be careful that you test it all first.
Okay, with this one, I will not be working with bleeding edge. It's too risky.
Yeah.
But I'm used to develop on bleeding edge sites and just launch them after the release, and it's working fine each time. So I just considering to do it again, but this with high price on stake.
Yeah.
I suppose.
I mean, if we go back to this site here, you see these little menu items are very small. Now that's something that changed in Gutenberg 10.6. This is what they're supposed to look like. It's supposed to be this size. And that's something I haven't yet debugged. So I haven't had time for it. But that was just a bit of styling that's changed, and it could affect your site tremendously if you didn't realize it's happened and you were too bothered about it. So it's just a bit of padding, which I haven't set. Functionality is pretty good, well, except when certain things aren't quite there. The query block has limited functionality compared to what WordPress provides as the WP query. So I had to override it in order to create the ability to display random content on the ThisIs and FAQ pages. I was able to do that because I'm a PHP programmer. If you're not a PHP programmer, you'll just have to be able to rely on either blocks that could extend the query block, or just live with what it can do.
Query block is a weird thing, I think. The most weird thing I saw.
Yes, it was a bit weird, and I didn't give you a very good demo of it. But you can see here it's actually working properly on this page, on the search page. The query block being used to display, because it's a search, it's an archive listing, and it's found a result, and then the query block is displaying all the results it's found. The first one is displaying as a big bit of item, then I'm displaying it again. Maybe I'm not in this case. And here we're just displaying them in 3 columns in the grid format. And I could change that so I could display it vertically or in 4 columns in the grid format. See if we can do it. So now I need to go and get into the search template. Here we have it. And go use this list view to find the query block. Which is here. I've no idea what that's doing there. Here's the query block. It says it will run the query that has been asked for, so we don't have to do anything about it. And here we're displaying 3 columns, and if I say display it as 4 columns or display it as 2 columns, it will automatically adjust it and display the content to us. Now, if I wanted to add in another block into the query output, I'll insert afterwards, and I will choose a block such as the category or tags. So that's a post.
I think these queries can still be filtered by function in addition.
Sorry?
I think that these queries can still be filtered by function additionally. For example, like by default, you want to exclude something from it or etc.
Yeah, if there's some things you can do and there's some things you can't do. Just if I can find. So I was going
It's
to
still a query, isn't it?
It's still a query.
It's still a query.
It's still a query, yes, but
it's use all filters which supposed to be applied to a content.
Yeah,
right?
Under the covers, yes, the server will be running the normal query, and in order to display this output. Let's see if I get rid of that. So I've put in there a post author block.
Like a developer, you can control what your users are getting.
Yes, up to a point. The user can try to control something, but in the server, you can still, the query will still be run normally, and therefore you can modify the results that are displayed. Now that might start confusing the user when they are then capable of trying to write a query, and you're adjusting it. So, for example, if you happen to have a custom post type called frequently asked questions, and you thought that would be more obvious to display them in ascending order than it would be to display them in chronological order, you might have already written some code to change the query when it's being run to do that. And that might then confuse the user who's trying to query that particular post type and is unable to change the sequence in which they're being displayed. Now, I've put this block in there, but why isn't it duplicated into these bits? And the answer is, I don't know. And I think the answer is, it doesn't make sense. Let's save it. Anyone want to ask another question?
Is it worth explaining what nightly means? Because a couple of people have asked that of the DM.
Yes, right. Let's go and click on this link again. So there's this thing called Gutenberg Times, which is written by Pauli Birgit Kark, and they wanted to be able to get a version of Gutenberg which was built from the latest version of the code and built overnight, so that whatever has been committed into Gutenberg will be available as basically a beta test version. So it's a complicated process building the code. So if you can have a tool doing it for you, then it'll save you a lot of effort. So it's not a released version. Gutenberg gets released once a fortnight effectively. The next version will be 10.7, which will be basically the final version that of the code will be going into WordPress 5.8. But there'll be nightly versions up until that point, and we will be able to test any changes that have been made over the next week as they come out from the nightly version. Does that answer the question? Steve nods yes. Gutenberg Times was quoted by Matt Mullenweg recently. No, was it in Mark Wilkinson's interview with him as being one of the best resources for finding out about Gutenberg? All right, let's go back to this. So I just changed the query block, and I added the author to part of the query output, and lo and behold, we can see this author block is now appearing below each of the different posts that are there. What I should have done was probably change the query so that there were 6 posts being displayed, but that is actually part of the site doing that, not the query block itself, because it's the default query. So to achieve that, I would go and change the settings reading. Now, there are only 5 displayed because there are only 5 that match the answer with the answer thing. Any more questions?
Do we still have a customizer?
Will they still use the customizer? There has been some discussion recently on this thing called a universal theme. And a universal theme is one that could be changed using the customizer or the site editor. Now, this will be for themes which are now being termed classic themes. So all of the 8,000 or so themes in WordPress.org are classic themes, and many of them provide facilities to edit using the customizer, and they will probably continue to want to do that. But someone might want to be able to add in an HTML template to their theme and be able to edit that using the site editor, and then they'll think, I want to be able to edit that using the customizer. So yes, it's still about, but if we were to try to edit this theme, we will find there's not much of it available in the customizer. And the way I get to it is not from the appearance customizer, but you go into customize here. So it's just got this standard stuff. I can write custom CSS if I want, and I can change the settings that I've already been changing elsewhere, but I don't think I'll be able to do anything to change this part of it. So none of this is yet available in the customizer.
Sometimes it's even right now it's a bit confusing where to look for settings. For instance, WooCommerce has settings in the submenu, and some of them are in the customizer.
Yeah.
I never remember where to look for them, really.
No. Well, there's lots of places you don't remember to look. And Johnny was talking about menus. He's mentioned the fact that if you went into the, and I won't be able to do it now because menus is, for this theme, is now a thing of the past. It doesn't have menus. It has navigation areas, which were menus, but have now become navigation, and you no longer go into the menu editor to change them. Similarly, we don't have widget areas to go and edit. So Johnny mentioned the ability to change the menu description, and you would go up into the screen options and then make a choice from there to display additional information. And the idea is that it all gets put into one place and accessible from that one place. And that one place is the site editor. And you'll be choosing things from the settings or the global styles or the templates, or maybe some more fancy stuff is going to happen in this bit here. So you can choose it. But it will be, yeah, again, it's going to be just as hard to find as it was before until you've learnt it.
Can you show us more about the menus, Herb? Because can you do sub-menus and how
Ah,
they're
right,
responsive and
okay,
things like
menu.
that? Can you like change how they look on a mobile?
The support for mobile and responsiveness is not particularly good at the moment, and it's true about columns and menus. I've got a horizontal menu here, and I can add in submenus into it, so I can choose to add something, and I've now added in the submenu. Now the color's no good. I can probably do something, and that's global styles. I don't want that. Here's the description field I was talking about. And no, I can't see how to do color.
Can you add images in there as well in the menu? Or is it
Images
just
in the menu.
text?
Not yet. Is that a requirement?
No, just a lot of people ask for that. So I wonder if it's easy in this new editor.
No, probably not. I could put a spacer in. I could put a social menu item in as well. Why doesn't it want me to do anything? I should be able to put search in. No. Sorry, Blender, unable to answer that one. I've managed to change the menu to put one sub-menu in there. Should we have a look at it?
Yeah. I'd like to see how it looks on a mobile as well. If,
Right. There's this wonderful thing called Preview, which tries to show you what the website looks like, desktop, tablet and mobile. But as you can see, it isn't doing anything like what the website looks like. So don't call it wonderful, really. There's also this weirdness of trying to get back to the home page or visiting your site. You have to go through loops. So there is the menu, and I have no idea how to change the submenu color. If in a future version, not in this version, there will be hamburger menu capability, which is what you're probably interested in, and I think it will apply for any of them. And now if I go and do that, you can see that the menu is just wrapping around because I told it to be part of a column within. So it's responsive in a way, but not the way necessarily the way you might expect it to be.
yeah. Thanks.
Any other questions? Right, how to get involved. That's what we need to know next. Right, if you want to contribute to the full site editing experience, like Drew has been doing, I understand, then you can simply go to WordPress Slack and join the FSE Outreach Experiment channel. And this has been going since the 1st of May 2020. But if you don't necessarily want to be testing an FSE theme, then you can actually go and work on the design of it, or the development, the coding, the documentation, which is a very important part because people will need to know how to use it. Eventually there will be translation of the themes that have been created. I understand some people enjoy marketing. The theme review team will be, of course, ramping up to review any new FSE themes that are being submitted. And there's all the other different teams that you could work in, including training, which is where people are making videos of full site editing and block editing and other different things. So in order to contribute to WordPress, you basically visit this and click on that. And if you want to get involved in full site editing, you visit this and click on that. That is the wrong one. No, that is the right one. So this is written by Caroline and Imart, who is the author of a number of different things, and this whole website called Full Site Editing, and it tells you all about joining the full site editing group and how you can do some contribution. So that's more useful information than that I'd written. Is Abba still there?
I am still here, yeah. I'm just doing notes from your talk. Because I'm hoping that you'll come and share some of this in one of our WordCamp Europe bits that we're doing.
All right.
So, and there's also the test. Are you going to show the current test calls for tests that are going on at the moment?
Calls for testing, right? Okay, then let's go and do that one. What did I say it was under? It was experiment, wasn't it? You can find it before me. Query request. That was number 5. FSE Outreach Experiment. Call number 6, template editing and navigation block.
And we really would value some more people looking at this and doing some tests. And if you follow the stuff that Herb said today, it really isn't that hard to set up the environment and also talk you through the bits that you need to do. So hopefully getting more people involved in the testing will really make a difference to what's created.
Right, so in this test, I've got to create a page called About, Contact and Code of Conduct. These don't need content. And then I create a 4th page and feeling inspired from WordCamp Couch. Create a new template. Well, I haven't done that. I don't think we'll be able to do it right now. It's quite a few steps in there. And the important thing when you're performing these things is to basically keep a good idea of what you're doing and what happened, what you expected to happen, and make your comments. And one way of doing this is to actually open up your favorite video recording program and record yourself doing it and make your comments as you're following the instructions as to what you thought was going on when you were doing it. And then you can feed that back into the comments, which we will see down here, and that will all be reviewed by, and some things will be passed on to the marketing team and the design team and whatever.
and to the FSE experiment team, which Herb is a part of.
Yeah.
So, which is, but it you don't have to be an FSE expert to be testing it. And if you get stuck along the way, there is plenty of help available.
So
Actually, if you are stuck along the way, it's something to notify about. If you cannot do something, it's possibly because some kind of lack of user interface or something like this, and it can be better.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't watched this video that I'm showing you how to do it, but if you haven't gone through experiments 1 to 5, you might find doing this one a bit harder, and maybe you should go back and try the experiments 1 to 5. I mean, they should all work and build together and get to it. And the more experience you have with using it, you'll learn its quirks, but you'll also learn how certain things do work nicely.
And if this level of development isn't your thing, there's also lots of stuff that we're doing on FSE, as Herb said, in the marketing team as well. And if you want to look at, if you're on Slack and they make WordPress Slack, if you look at today's meeting, you'll see all the things that we're working on relating to FSE, including where do we need to tell people about it? What channels do we need to reach? And what sort of things that people are still having difficulty with. There's also a podcast that Giuseppe Hayden, who is the executive director of WordPress, has made an interview with one of the people who is developing FSE, all about some of the things that you might want to know about. I think Olga might be able to share the link, hopefully, in the chat to that podcast. There's a transcript there as well, if you don't want to listen to the podcast itself, but want to prefer to read it. And there's lots and lots of things about what it will mean. We also have a couple of people who are looking at how the non-tech cat bloggers, people who use WordPress for family communications, how they might find and want to understand about FSE. So if you'd like to get involved with that, we've got a little group of people who are working on it. Just let Olga or myself know, and we'll put you in touch with the right people. But there's lots and lots of things. Full site editing in WordPress is huge. It's a game changer. And the more we can help people understand it, then the more benefits there are.
Yes, full site editing is comes in 4 stages. And you can watch this short video from Matt Mullenweg with Jon, whatever his name is, from the last year's State of the Word, where he talks about it. And what I was trying to find was the information about the 4 different stages. Matt says we're 2 years into a 10-year project. And the 4 stages include full site editing is stage 2. Stage 3 is something to do with the workflow to create content, collaboration, and stage 4 is multilingual, which would be even huger.
And this is an opportunity for people to get involved. And if you are looking for getting involved at WordCamp Europe on the 7th to the 10th of June, we will have an on-demand area where you can find out about some of the things that each of the teams are doing. And some of the teams are also going to be presenting workshops.
7th, is that on Monday to Thursday?
It's Monday to Wednesday.
Got a question for you, Herb.
Yeah.
Is the sneak peek, is this site going, is it somewhat static? Is it just a demo for today? I'd like to be able to come back and refer to it. I'm just wondering
yes,
how
it's so I've been writing this for the last so many weeks, and I'm probably going to stop doing something the next couple of days because I do have other things to do. But I think I'll continue to develop it and try to find the answers, because I need to find the answers to do things myself, and so it will be around.
Wonderful, thank you.
Hopefully,
That's
I wrote actually something in here saying that even though I put a copyright on the bottom of it, it's fair use. If there's something that you want to take from here and put somewhere else, especially if you happen to be a person who's working on the official documentation, then that's what it's there for. It's what I've written about it, and but it's something which could go into official documentation.
Does the full site outreach program, does that cover documentation, developing the documentation for full site editing as well?
No, not necessarily, because it's just a case of testing. But once you get involved in that and then you start looking at it, you'll find that people have been raising a number of different issues to say, well, most recently, Daisy Olson, who was going to come to this, raised something saying, so how do we go about creating this documentation? Where should it be? And how do we approach the documentation for all the different people who are using it? The developers, the theme developers, who will be needing to learn how to write their themes and test their themes and make sure they're doing it the right way. And then there's the users, and then there's the website integrators. Each person will have a different hilltop from which they're looking to see how this thing works, and will have different requirements on information they get given.
And it's something a part of not just documentation, but also in terms of how information flows from core that we've been also exploring. But if you're interested in actually working on documentation for FSE, then if you're on Make WordPress Slack already, then you can follow the FSE experiment channel. And if you also want to know what's going into the release that's related to FSE, there is a 5.8 release channel as well that you can observe.
Yes, another one.
But basically, there's lots and lots of ways you can get involved.
Yes, but you may end up with information overload, because there is so much that you could find out about or try to find out about.
Ruby, was it particularly documentation you were interested in doing more on?
Well, it's something that I can get more quickly up to speed on. I mean, I would love to do some testing as well. Working through the tasks looks like something that intrigues me. But I was just also wondering about the documentation team.
Yeah. If you want to have a conversation after this, we can chat about documentation, but also there might be things in marketing that you would want to do in terms of how we integrate information.
Okay, thank you.
I can give you some documentation as well.
So it's 10 to 9 and it's time to wrap up. So I'm just going to go back to the PowerPoint. Try going back to the PowerPoint. How do I go back to the PowerPoint?
Did you want to stop recording to save you having to edit so much?
Well, I can just delete this bit, but I will.
Okay.
Stop recording.